So today I'm just going to continue on the stuff that I was doing yesterday about dealing with data in columns where there's another column specifying where that data should go. So I'm just going to jump right in. So this is the file that we were working on. You'll see I'm in, if you will recall, we had divided our file into individuals and organizations, and yesterday we imported the addresses. So what I'm going to do now is move to organizations, and we're going to work on this internet type, internet address stuff. So I'm going to start by selecting the address columns that we imported yesterday and just deleting them because we don't need them anymore. And I'm also going to select everything that's left and delete anything that's empty. Because as you can see here, there's a whole record with nothing in it. So there's no point in, we may as well just get rid of all of that stuff right away. So I'm going to delete empty. Well, that didn't help that much. And then we'll save this. And then I'm actually going to delete the phone columns as well. And now I'm going to delete these empty ones. I got rid of a bunch of stuff. And we'll save this as organizations2-internet addresses. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the individuals. So we're going to delete these columns with street addresses. We're going to delete the empty rows. Save this. And then delete the phone columns and the empty rows again. And save this as internet addresses. Okay. And now I'm going to go to my mapping and figure out what we need to do here. So this internet type column will tell us what to do with stuff. So we're going to start with business emails, and here the first three things deal with organizations. So we're going to go back to Sumac and reopen our internet address file for organizations. And then I'm going to sort by internet type column. I'm going to save this so that the file is, so the sort is saved basically. And now we're going to start with business email. So in this case, we're going to look for records that are empty. In this case, there are none. Everything's got something in this internet type column. Records contain email and the gender is organization. So that'll be all of these. Email. Okay, so in this case, we're just looking for the ones that have the word email in it. So in this case, I'm going to select everything except the emails and delete the rows and save this as dash business email. Now I just want to check one more thing. Yeah. Okay, and now we're going to import these business emails. Oh, I'm forgetting to do something, which is to check for duplicates. So I'm going to group duplicates. We did find some. Okay, so here you'll see we have the same contact 3 times with 3 different email addresses. Now, with the mailing addresses, what we did was just remove the extraneous ones or the extra ones and make a note in the mapping. But with email addresses, because in a contact record, we have lots of room for various email addresses, right? There are two fields here for email addresses, and there's a third one here for an assistant. And beyond that, we have another 2 email addresses here in the residence address, and we have room for another email address in the vacation address. What we're going to do is actually just import those directly. So what I'm going to do, because there aren't a lot of them here, I'm just going to create a new empty column and cut and paste this here. So this will be email 1, this will be email 2, and I'm going to create a new empty column. Cut this. And because this is a business organization or a business address, we're going to use the assistant email. Even though we don't necessarily know if this is an assistant email, it's just somewhere to put this address. And then we can delete these 2 rows of data because there's nothing left in them. And then the other thing that we have to do here is validate the emails for correct format, because the data prep person would not have been able to do that because there were various forms of data in this column, right? We had email addresses and web addresses. So now we have to make sure that the email addresses are in the correct format. So I'm going to validate. So we'll just show only selected. Here there are obviously 2 addresses, so I'm going to do this. That's a web address. Now in this case, I'm going to probably save those to an error report when we do the import, because these are identified as email. I'm not going to be able to find them if I try to import them directly into, well, actually, there's not many of them. So what we can do is, again, create a new empty column, call this website, and then we'll go back to validating our email addresses for correct format. So these guys that are obviously web addresses. Now, if let's say you had a pile of these, like there were 100 of them, you would just put them into an error report and not import them. I would say if you have like less than 10, just do them manually, fix them manually. The client will be happy. But if it's more than 10, then I would just create an error report with those addresses so that the client can review it later if they want. And that I can't fix, so I'm going to delete it. Alright, show all. Make sure those are all okay now. Validate this. Validate this. Okay. So now these are ready to import. So we're going to import contacts. We're updating records already in the database. And that's business email 1, business email 2, assistant email, and business website. No errors, and now we'll update them. Okay, any questions about that so far? Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to go here, and I'm going to get rid of these 2. They've been dealt with. So they're going to go into the absorbed folder, and I'm going to go to my mapping, And I'm going to gray out just the stuff that I've done. Okay. So now...
The only thing that the last email that you
Yeah.
have deleted, I would basically put the @ before
Well, the thing
AOL.com.
is,
I mean,
you don't
if
know, right?
that's
Like, you know how there was a
mhm.
99? Like, maybe the
Yeah.
99 was a typo,
Mhm.
or maybe, like maybe that's where the @ sign was supposed to
Mhm.
go, or um,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like, it's if it's wrong and you don't know
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure,
Mhm.
um, yeah, you could guess at it, but you might be guessing wrong. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
and our
understand.
policy is that we don't
Mhm.
fix things unless the mistake is really, really obvious. So with that one, yeah, the @
Mhm.
probably belonged in front of AOL and you could have done it. Um, but again, if there were 300 that were like that, we can't, right? Like, we can't be
Yeah,
expected to fix every
definitely.
single one.
Mhm.
And the thing is that that email, if they use it right now, it's going to fail. So it's not a useful email address anyway. And so that's our policy, is that we don't, like, if there's a missing @ sign, we
Mhm.
don't guess, because AOL, we kind of know. It's like Gmail, you know that the @ belongs in front of it, but
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
know if there's a typo elsewhere in the email address, so we just leave them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to move on. Now I'm going to skip these two because we're going to keep working with the ones that have our gender organization. So now we're going to use the business website. So we're going to go back to Sumac and open this organizations file. And now we can get rid of the emails because we've dealt with email, right? So I'm going
Mhm.
to delete these guys. And then where records contain Facebook and gender is organization, and where records contain web and gender is organization, and again, web, public, in brackets. So I think that's probably everything that's left here. So Facebook, web, oh, and nothing else. So we'll save this as dash website. It's really important to name each subfile really clearly according to where the data is going, um, just in case there's a problem with the import, or if the client
Mhm.
reports errors. It just makes it easier to trace everything backwards if you label each subfile carefully.
Yeah. At this point, I'm doing it. I'm kind of creating a separate
Oh,
folder
you are?
for each and every. Just yeah, because I'm kind of I'm losing everything. Just I'm new, so I'm kind of I
Yeah.
can lose data. So I want to have
Yeah, I
everything in a
mean,
separate folder. It takes more time, but
if you
like if
watch,
I'm not that
like
that.
if we sort by
Mhm.
name, these should be mostly, like, once you're in the absorbed folder, they should mostly show up in like the right
Mhm.
address. See, like here we have the versions of addresses up
Yeah.
until the point where we split them up, and then we
Mhm.
have all the individuals and each
Mhm.
version and subfile and so on. So you can see the sort of trajectory of the work, and that's the idea, is
Mhm.
that, yeah, you'll end up with really long file names, but you know exactly where that file came from and
Mhm.
how you got to that file. Yeah.
Yeah.
Folders is probably not a terrible idea too. It just sounds like a lot of extra work, and you still have
It's
to be careful
just
about naming
yeah, yeah,
everything
but
in the
mhm.
folder properly. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so the deal with web addresses is we don't really need to worry about them, so these can now be imported. So I'm just going to import these. We're updating contacts, and we're choosing the website file, and we're going to do this. And I'm going to go down to business website. No errors. And that went in okay. So now again, I'm done with the organization's stuff. So I'm going to go back to my data for import folder and delete the internet address. Well, not delete them, sorry, bad. Move them into the absorbed folder. So those, anyone coming, the reason that I would like to work this way, just so you know, is that if something happened to you, like something, if you get sick or whatever, you disappear on us, anybody coming into the file can see what's left to work on, and anything that's in the absorbed file has been dealt with. So anything that's left in here should be stuff that still needs some kind of work. That's why it's a quick visual of where we're at. So that's why I like to tell people to move things into the absorbed file as you finish it. And then and it's the same thing with the mapping, with like graying out this text. Now I can gray out this whole section because we've imported all of that stuff. And I'm going to save the mapping. So again, this just tells a person who's coming into the project fresh that there's still stuff to do here and there's still stuff to do here, but I don't need to worry about these things. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our individuals file and start working through this stuff all over again. So I'm going to go open my internet addresses individuals file. And we're going to sort this, and I'm going to save it so that the sort is captured. And we're going to do, okay, so use business email where the records contain email and then W in brackets. And where records contain email main, oh, this one we did already as well. So I'm just going to start with this one, email W. So I'm going to scroll down and delete these rows and make sure I only have email W, and then I'm going to save this as business email. Okay. And then I'm going to group my duplicates. Only 2, so that's good. And in this case, oh, it's not the same. Super close, but not exactly the same. So I'm going to create a new empty column. This will be email 1. Email 2, I'm going to delete this empty row. And I'm going to validate my email addresses for correct format. So that came back okay. And that came back okay. Now I'll save this as business email. Now there's one more thing we have to do. Because we've already imported some data into the email, the business email fields, we have to make sure we're not going to import something on top of an existing email address. It shouldn't happen because we've gone by gender here, so we should be all right. But sometimes we don't have a gender. Sometimes there's like other stuff that we're using to identify whether something's going into a business email or a residence email. And so it's worthwhile just to make sure that we're not going to erase any data by importing this file. So I'm going to go to contacts and I'm going to do a search by IDs file. Have you seen this before? Okay, so basically Sumac can look at a file, and if the file has the IDs in the first column of data, it can look for those IDs in the database. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to choose this business email file that I just created. So, and what it's going to do is going to look for those IDs that are in the first column in this particular file. And then if I click search, it's going to find them. something happening? Sumac is mad at me. I don't know what's happening. It died on me. I don't know why that's taking so long. Oh, there we go. I found it. Now I have another sumac that's going to pop up. Okay. So it found 66 contact IDs. And what I'm going to do here is just show the fields that we imported stuff into earlier. So business email 2, assistant email. Click OK. And I'm just going to... So see, there's nothing in here. So we're safe. So it's just a check to make sure. Let's say there was an address here. Then what I would do is find this contact in this file and probably just manually enter an email address into the contact record, depending again on how many there are. If you had 1,000 that showed up here, then I would probably create an error report with those IDs and the email addresses for the client to decide what to do with them. But since they're all ready to go, I can go to my contacts, import contacts, and I know this is really repetitive, but this stuff can get really, it's easy to get sort of lost in the sifting of the information. So I really want to make sure we drill down everything carefully. Cells an error and update, and those are done. So now again, I'm going to go back to this data for import folder, and we just did this guy. And then I'm going to go to my mapping and show that that work has been done and save the mapping. And then we're going to move on to the next thing. So use residence email where records are empty and gender is not organization, records contain email and gender is not organization, and so on. So I'm going to go back to sumac. Get rid of that. We're done with that. Okay, so now we're dealing just with the emails. And the work guys. Oh, I should have gotten rid of that file too. Okay, now so I'm actually going to scroll down and get rid of those work guys. So we're done with them. Delete these, save the file. Okay, so now back to the mapping. Okay, so records are empty and gender is not organization. So that's these two. Records contain email. We don't have just email. Email with the H. Email public. Email main. So all of these guys. And then anything else that contains email. So Norm's email stays. Now these web ones are the ones we're going to use later. So I'm just going to delete these rows, save this as residence email, and we're going to run that whole process again. So we're going to group our duplicates. Found 14 this time. So let's see. That's not that many, so I'm, oops, just going to go through them. You have to be careful when you do this, that like the assumption is that there's 2 of everything, but sometimes there will be like 3. So you just have to be really careful. And every once in a while you'll see the same email address, in which case you can just delete the second email address if it's an actual duplicate. 96. Okay. Oops. Okay. I'm just being really careful about what I'm doing here. Okay, and we're going to validate. Yeah, so here's like an example like what we were talking earlier. Our policy is we just don't import this. This doesn't exist. I know that it's probably this, but it could have been this, right? It could have been. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like we don't know. So
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you make a note somewhere, like in that field somewhere, like for the customers to see that this email
no,
address was
because it's
deleted
in
or something like
our
that?
policies. Like when we communicate what we do with their data, there's a list. There's a list of things that we say
Mm-hmm.
we'll fix, and there's a list of things that we say we won't fix. And this is one of the things that we communicate won't be fixed because we can't
Mm-hmm.
guess. Basically, like it requires guesswork. There's no way for us to know where the @ sign belongs. So
Mm-hmm.
it's the same like with the
Yeah.
.com. Like if it had this, it could be .com, it could be .ca, it could be like whatever, right? So we don't know.
Yep.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so in
Yeah.
those cases, we just delete it because at that point, like the odds are we're gonna miss it anyway. It's gonna be wrong. So we just
Mm-hmm.
delete it. So do that. Here's another one.
That is probably like
Yeah, which
looks more
again,
like a
like because there's
website or
one,
something.
I'll do it. I'll just do this. Call this email 1, email 2, email, oops, website. And we'll save this. And then we'll import. Contacts. So, email 2, website. So that's good. So I'll go back to here. We've done residence emails. And go back to our mapping and mark these off. And our time is up. So I'll continue with this job. I want to like work through the whole job of doing this because this is like one of the most like dangerous places to tread when you're importing data. It's really easy to make mistakes, so I want to make sure, I know it's not super interesting, but I want to make sure it's like drilled in really well how to like sort of work your way through the file. Any other questions about the stuff so far? Okay. Yeah, so that's it for today, and I guess tomorrow we'll hopefully finish the rest of it. Okay? All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.